What is the proof for God? What is the evidence to the explanations of Vedanta? Should we believe in this blindly? You are simply talking about some claims that have been made in an ancient, outdated book. These are the kinds of comments that we got for our previous video that we had made on the idea of God as per Adhvaitha Vedanta. Now, I think this is a valid question to ask, especially if we are asking this from a place of sincerity and seeking. So, in this video, we will go very deep to understand the answers to this. The Advaita channel is about consciousness and conscious creation. Here we explore Vedanta and various other ancient teachings from India to understand the nature of reality and to consciously create our lives. Now, this video is not particularly structured in any way. I'm going to simply give my understanding and my explanation for this question. First of all, there is a certain segment of people who are genuinely curious and they are seeking and they are coming from a place of curiosity. And then there is a certain segment which is coming from a place of arrogance and assumption. So if you have already assumed that you know everything, then obviously any teaching cannot take you anywhere. Only if you have an open mind can there be such a thing as knowledge that can come into your mind. With this, let us begin our journey into understanding God. First of all, before we even start this inquiry, let us define God clearly. Now, different religions, different philosophies, and different schools of thought define God in slightly different ways. But the common thread among all of these definitions of God or the explanations of God is that God is infinite. God is all-powerful. God is pure, God is light, and God is love. So, these are some of the common elements in the explanation of God. Now, within Sanatana Dharma, there are different schools of thought and there are different philosophies that explain the ultimate reality. Among these schools of thought and philosophies, Vedanta, which is the conclusion or the philosophical explanations of the Vedas concerning the nature of reality, are considered to be the highest teaching that there is by the Hindus. Now, within these Upanishads and within Advaita Vedanta, which was taught by Adi Shankaracharya, by Swami Vivekananda, Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, and many great teachers and philosophers, the explanation of ultimate reality is like this. Whether we call it God or the ultimate reality or the infinite intelligence, it doesn't matter. What we are talking about is a transcendent and immanent reality which is within which the entire universe exists and which is within which the entire universe at one point dissolves. In reality, that ultimate truth or God or consciousness is the only thing that truly exists as per Advaita Vedanta. So we are discussing God as per the explanation of Advaita Vedanta. And even within Vedanta, there is something called as Ishvara, which is the God of the manifested universe. And then there is Brahman or infinite consciousness. Now, for me, in my explanation, I consider the ultimate reality as God. So now we are not looking at any other explanations of God. We are trying to understand God as per the teachings of Upanishads. With this, let us go further. So, how can we go about understanding this and how can we go about proving this? First of all, the way that the ultimate reality is explained in Vedanta is very direct and it is very practical. It is in our own experience. Like we understood, God is defined as consciousness by Vedanta. And I don't have to prove to you what consciousness is or whether consciousness exists because we are conscious right now. And I also do not have to prove to you that consciousness is fundamental, because consciousness is fundamental. This is the most evident thing that there is in this universe. In fact, this is self-evident. It is because I am conscious that I am speaking right now. It is because of the consciousness that I am that I understand things, that I experience different things, and I am living this life. So I don't have to prove to you consciousness. In fact, I can challenge you that you prove to me what is matter. You prove the existence of matter apart from consciousness. You give me the evidence of the existence of the world and the universe apart from consciousness. This is more difficult to do than to explain consciousness or experience consciousness. Just think about this deeply. If you simply close your eyes and think about what is the most fundamental experience that you have as a human being, as a person in this world, it will be the experience of being. I exist. This is the most truthful thing that I can say. I exist is the ultimate truth, because everything else comes after it. The existence of the world, the existence of matter and energy and the universe and different things within the universe all comes after I exist. Only because I exist and only because I'm conscious, I can say that there is something apart from me also. So in this way, the fundamental truth of our own experience is our own existence, the existence of consciousness. This is how we must look at reality as per the teachings of Vedanta. I exist. This is the only thing that I can honestly say with absolute confidence, because everything else might be a simulation. Everything else is transient. Everything else comes and goes. Within our dream, we think that the dream simulation is real and we experience different things within the dream as something that is real. But once we wake up, we realize that it was all an illusion. And in the waking world, again, we go through various experiences, assuming that they are real. And we get involved with life without recognizing the fundamental reality of reality, which is consciousness. It is because that I am, I experience. So the existence of the world depends on my consciousness. Now, when I say this, don't think that I'm saying because of my mind or because I open my eyes, the universe exists. Vedanta is talking about something which is much more deeper than this. But this is how we must begin to look at reality. So as per Vedanta, this is the place from which we must start our inquiry. The inquiry about the nature of reality, about the nature of God, or about anything else. The starting point must be consciousness, because this is the most direct and the most evident thing that there is in our own experience. How can we start with the world? Because the existence of the world is dependent on our consciousness, our awareness. Now let us look at this more deeply. Let us look at the word evidence. The word evidence comes from Latin, which is evident or evidentia, which means to notice or to observe. It can also mean that which is obvious. Now think about this deeply. What is the most obvious thing in this world? If you have to pick one thing which is the most obvious thing, which is the most evidential to you, which is that thing? If you inquire about this deeply, the answer that you will come to is your own existence. This is why time and time again Ramana Maharshi said, ask, who am I? Who is the one who is asking the question? This is the most direct experience that we have. This is the most obvious thing to us. That is our own existence, and that we are consciousness. And then we can say everything else appears to this consciousness. So, consciousness is the fundamental essence of reality. And this is self-evident. The fundamental problem with most of what modern science is doing is that it is assuming that the world exists apart from us, without inquiry, without questioning it. What the Upanishads ask us to do instead is to inquire this assumption, inquire the assumption that the world exists apart from the consciousness that we are. Now, within Vedanta, there is a framework called Avastatraya Viveka, which is a framework which will explain to us what consciousness is. And let us look at it now because it is relevant here. In the morning, we wake up and we brush our teeth, we take a bath, and we get on with our lives. We do different things in this world and we are indulged in activity throughout the day. Here, our physical body is active. And then at night, we come to our homes, we get into our rooms and we go to sleep. And after we go to sleep, we dream different dreams. And within the dreams, the physical body is dormant and the mind is active. The mind stimulates the dream environment and we experience different things in the dream world as a different person, as the dream ego. Now, after this, at certain point in time, we go to Sushupti, which is the deep sleep. Within the deep sleep, our conscious mind no longer exists, but we still exist. Because once we wake up from deep sleep, we claim that experience. We can confidently say, even after going through the deep sleep, that I had slept. I had a good night's sleep. So there was an I even during the deep sleep, but our conscious mind or ego was not present there. And after deep sleep, we wake up and we continue this cycle again. What Vedanta asks us to do is to point out the common factor in these three states of being. In Jagrat Avastha, in Swapna, in Sushupti, in waking state, in dreaming state, and in the deep sleep state, what is the common factor? Everything else is transient because in the external world, things keep changing. Every day there are different things. And even in the dream world, everything keeps changing. In the deep sleep, there is no experience as such. There is absolute stillness, but something still continues even there. Because you are not dead even there, right? You wake up after deep sleep and you say that I was having a deep sleep. So something continues throughout these three states of being. What continues is consciousness. This consciousness is who we are at the deepest level. Vedanta says that we are not this physical body, we are not this mind. Now, why are we discussing all this when we are trying to prove God? If this is your question, please bear with me, because what ultimately Vedanta says is that you are that Tattvamasi, you are that ultimate reality or God. So, Vedanta is saying that the consciousness, the infinite consciousness is God. And our awareness is a channeled aspect of that infinite consciousness itself. So, this is the framework of Avastatraya Viveka. Now, like this, we spend days and years and our awareness is totally attached to the external world. And within our dream, it is attached or it is engaged with the dream world. What we do not do is go inward. Vedanta asks us to take our attention from the external world to our internal being, which will then reveal to us who we truly are and what God truly is. External world is simply an image. It is because of our sense perception that we experience the external world. If you have watched the movie Matrix, the fundamental story of that movie revolves around the fact that our experiences and our reality can be simulated very easily. Even the virtual reality headsets and the virtual reality games that are now there on the market can easily do this, can create a false reality for us to experience. So how do we know that this physical world is real? Scientists are now questioning this. More and more people are now thinking about whether this reality is actually real or not. We do not know this. we have simply assumed this. The only thing that we are sure of is our own experience. Nobody can deny this. Nobody can say that I do not exist because I have the first hand experience of my own existence. I know that I am. This is the most primary, this is the most honest thing that I can say, that I am, that I exist. Everything else might be a simulation, might be a false assumption. My own existence is not. So when we start from this place and when we begin self-inquiry and when we go deeper and deeper and peel the layers of conditioning, what we will come to is that infinite consciousness. This infinite consciousness is within which the universe exists. The entire universe is an appearance in consciousness. It exists in consciousness and it dissolves in consciousness. And even our own lives, if we look at it deeply, the world appears in our consciousness when we wake up and the world dissolves once we close our eyes. Whether the world actually exists or whether the world is a simulation with some colors and sounds and certain sense perceptions, we cannot be as sure as our own existence as that consciousness. So consciousness doesn't need any external evidence or proof. Consciousness is self-evident. It is self-luminous. Now there are different arguments for the existence of God and we will go through them one by one very quickly. At first there is the cosmological argument. This argument posits that everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. The scientific evidence points to the beginning of the universe. Therefore, the universe has a cause. Second, there is the fine-tuning argument. This argument suggests that the physical constants and laws of the universe appear to be finely tuned to allow for life, implying an intelligent designer. So it is based on scientific observations about the precise conditions needed for life, and it aligns with the idea of an intelligent creator. And then there is the moral argument. This argument suggests that the existence of objective moral values implies the existence of God as their source. Then there is the argument from the nature of formation. And some argue that the complex information found in DNA and the laws of physics implies an intelligent source. But all of this doesn't matter. As per Adhvaitha Vedanta, the ultimate evidence needs to be experiential. Ultimately, our experience of that infinite consciousness, which happens through moksha or enlightenment, is that aparoksha anubhuti. It is a sort of first-hand direct recognition of who we truly are and what God is and what reality is. At that point, every single one of us can say to ourselves that God exists with absolute conviction. And so all of this is not theoretical, but it is pointing towards having a first-hand direct experience of God. And Vedanta challenges us to pursue this path and find out the truth for ourselves. And with regards to this, even if we look at what quantum physics is now saying, it is mind-blowing. Physics is now saying that atoms and cells and matter, everything is 99.999% empty space. It is emptiness and it is all potential energy. And there is only 0.0001% or something called matter. So the entire reality that we are seeing all around us is 99.9999% empty space. It is emptiness, but it still appears to exist. This is what Adiguru Shankaracharya said 1,000 years ago. He said, Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. He said, consciousness is real. The world and the time-space reality is an appearance, and Jiva, which is you and me, are one with that infinite consciousness in our essence. And this is not a dogma, this is not a belief system, this is not a claim of an ancient text, but this can be experienced firsthand. Shankaracharya calls this aparoksha anubhuti. a first-hand direct experience of who we are as that unconditioned infinite consciousness, which is the most fundamental aspect of reality, which is the starting point for everything. So this doesn't require any evidence, and this also cannot be proved for anyone else, because it is a personal experience and it is a personal being for everyone. Your existence cannot be proved for anyone. You know that you exist. It is the most evident thing for you personally. But how can you convince others that you exist? So, nobody can come close to understanding your existence than you yourself. So, this is the starting point for our self inquiry. And from here, we must go deeper and deeper to see what reality actually is. We must simply, without any false pretense, without any false assumptions, begin to contemplate on reality. We must think about how the external world is nothing but a set of sense perceptions that we gather because of our jnanendriyas or the sense organs, and it is simply electrical signals that are created in the brain, and it is basically a bunch of images and sounds that goes through our awareness. How can we say that that sense perception is more real than our own existence, which is the consciousness? It is only because I exist that I see the world, like I said before. So, we should keep coming back to this, and we must keep inquiring from this point to understand what God is, to understand what ultimate reality is.